just really
This is live streaming. You just got into it.
Did I just get into it?
No, yeah. Just have it live streaming. Go ahead. Posted it. I told you guys to post it too, but I totally forgot. And then people were asking for it, so I was like, I'm sure.
If we...
Yeah, I was saying I don't have anything to do that with.
Yeah.
But we can move it
I
back.
was gonna say, if you move the whole table back, maybe that'll work.
Keep going. Keep going. Okay, hold on just a second. What I'm going to do is put it up here and get rid of that foreground. Okay, keep going. Back. Yep. I think that's good. I think right there. Twitterland, what do you think?
It's delayed.
At Target, we come in for black-owned coffee and leave with change in our hands. We come in for...
I grew up in Cobb County, so it's like Jimmy's.
Gotcha. Okay, well that's awesome. I am James. So, his dad is standing up towards the wall with the suit jacket on. He's the one looking
Yeah, these things do that.
He's a lot like Jimmy was. Twice. And then does not actually close his mouth, right? And so they, I don't know how, with so much, just growing up separately, how they were so much alike. And Jimmy, actually, little Jimmy, James' son, so what did you say?
I mean everything. I just moved back to like 6 months ago.
So,
Me and Jimmy actually.
okay.
Really cool moment for me and
Well, they actually
After I say what's up to my home.
This is their food. There's our rations.
That's amazing.
Okay, you just signal to me, I'll be okay. Okay. I got you. Oh, I'm so sorry.
All right, Bill, time to be quiet. All right, as we begin here, ladies and gentlemen, we had quite a few people to speak. I want to share memories of James, and to start us here is Mr. Caprice Coleman.
If you don't mind, bow our heads, please. Lord, we thank you for today. Thank you for waking us up this morning, God, and the clothes on our back, food on our table, and shoes on our feet, God. Waking us up in our right mind, God. We don't take our health for granted, God, nor our life, Lord. We come to you today with soft hearts, God. Our friend is passing. The memories of him will continue to live on. I pray that this memorial service is a service of reflection for our friends and enlightenment for other people of the person that Jimmy was. God, we love you. We thank you. And I pray that you touch these lips and allow me to say something to encourage somebody else. And I give you the glory. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. I'll try not to be before you long. I'm very happy to see a lot of my friends on this side, the wrestlers. Grew up with Jimmy, and I knew Jimmy since, I want to say, before he could legally wrestle. We were wrestling. He came to NWA Wildside, and we clicked immediately, mostly because we were immediately putting a feud together. And for those that don't know, it's like we immediately started wrestling each other. All right, and to see this guy, at the time he was very skinny. And I was too. But the ideas this guy had, you just knew he had in mind for professional wrestling. And it was to the point to where there was some ideas Jimmy Rave could come up with that wouldn't make sense from nobody else except it coming from Jimmy Rave. That's how creative he was. We were the type of friends that we didn't have to see each other all the time. It's one of those friends that you hadn't seen for a long time, and then you get back together and just kind of pick up where you left off at. Time had passed, and Jimmy had done everything, and he was the type of person that I would say engulfed whatever character he played. If he was the good guy, you loved him. If he was the bad guy, you would hate him worse than you hate your worst enemy. And if he was meant to be an underdog, you would cheer for him because he engulfed whatever he tried, and he did his best at it, and he believed it, and he was selfless in these acts and able to perform, because performing was what Jimmy lived for. To perform another day, that was his heart, that's what he loved. And I remember as time passed, it went a long time before I saw Jimmy. And I think he had a new stint at Ring of Honor, the place where I work. And I could look at him and I could tell like something had changed. And I didn't know what it was because it was the same Jimmy, but you could tell something was different. And I had refused to listen to what people were saying about him behind his back, because that was my Jimmy. You know somebody when you're 18, 19, 20 years old and you grow up in this sport together, you become family. Like these guys over here, a lot of you look at his family because we grew up together, like chasing this dream. Some of us made it and some of us didn't, but like Jimmy made it in this dream and made it to a very high level where he was able to compete in other countries and in just about every state and winning title after title. But this change that Jimmy had, I remember him looking in my eyes, and he looked at me and looked down on the ground as if I was disappointed in him. And then there's a look that Jimmy has, and I think you only know it if you know him. It's like he takes a breath and just looks at you like, go ahead and say what you're going to say. As if he was saying, whatever you say, I can take it. I've already heard it before. And he gives me this look that Jimmy gave, and was almost like, as if he was saying to me, like, are you going to turn your back on me too? Like, are you going to be just like everybody else and turn your back on me too? And I gave him a hug. I said, I love you, man. That was like the gist of most of our conversation. We ever since then, we never got real deep. It was just like, I love you, man. I love you too. And he told me about the problems that he was having. And then I didn't see him for a long time. And then I got a phone call from Jimmy. And he was so proud. He was like, I'm working with children now, and I'm working as a drug counselor, and I'm helping kids that were on drugs get off of drugs. And not only kids, there are guys in here that Jimmy has spoken to that had the same problems, that he talked to it and lead them into the right direction. And I was proud of him, and I was listening to his story. I said, man, this is a movie. This is a movie with somebody that had ups and downs and things ended on a really high note. And I said, man, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. And I said, I love you, man. I said, I love you too. And it would hit me up from time to time. And then as life went on, and this is a short span, he started like getting amputees and different things. His health started catching up with him. And it's one of those things that it's a love-hate thing, because I love the sport that we grew up in, but it's a hate thing too, because it's the type of sport that it'll bring you in, put you up high, and then it'll slam you and kick you out when it's done with you, and you spend years trying to get back to the glory days of that you rode, and trying to tell yourself you still got it and you still love it, and so you're trying to pour yourself into others. So when they succeed, you can see success through yourself. Am I making sense to anybody in here? And so I started seeing that in Jimmy, and how he was pouring into other people, and how only a few people became Jimmy Rave approved. But he loved everybody. And I'm going to leave you with this. I'm sure my time is way up. But if I had something to say, I would say this. Life can make it easy to find things to help you cope, but won't give you the willpower to walk away from the coping mechanisms. There's a void that can only be filled by getting to the root of problems and giving the problem to someone that can handle it. So I'm not here to try to bring Jimmy back. I want to leave a message for the people that are here. I've had my own dealings with different issues, pain pills and all. Yes, Caprice Coleman has had his issues. And the thing that got me through is the only thing I can introduce to you, and that's Christ. Because at a low time, I have a scripture to read, but I want to tell the story, and I still might read the scripture. I'm going to read the scripture to tell the story, and I'm going to be finished, okay? 1 Peter 5 and 6, but 5th chapter, starting at 6 verse says, humble yourself, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that you may exalt in due time, casting all your cares upon him, for he cares for you. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil is like a roaring lion, walking about seeking whom he may devour. Whom resist steadfast in the faith, knowing that the same afflictions are accomplished in your brethren that are in the world. But the God of all grace, who have called us unto eternal glory by Jesus Christ, after you have suffered a while, make perfect, establish, strengthen, and settle you. To him be the glory, dominion, and power forever. What he's saying is that we all through life are going to go through situations. But if we give our life to him, the very situations that we go through, we may suffer a while, but after we suffer a while, he'll bring the peace among us. And I believe that's the life that Jimmy lived. He went through his thing. And once he went through, he suffered a while, but he was able to have peace and bring others out with him and show others the way. This is where I stand in this story, and I'm going to close with this. I had a vision or a dream one day about myself when I was really like heavy in ministry, and I was associate pastor of the church and preaching every Sunday. And I felt like I didn't belong where I was because I had issues. And I was like, well, man, if I just get this one boulder out the way, I'll be a great person. And people will look at me and say, wow, Caprice Coleman is a great guy. And so I visualized the boulder, and friends came along, and I called like the deacons and the elders to pray for me. And I could see like this boulder breaking. And I saw the boulder, boom, split open. And I'm standing there, and all I see is these big old stones, because the boulder has turned to stones. And I said, well, man, if I could get somebody to help me move these stones out the way, I'd be all right. So I talked to people and all, and it's almost as like they was helping me lift one stone at a time to move the stones out the way. After the stones were broken down and moved out the way, it was these rocks. I was like, well, dang, all these rocks are in a pile, and I can't get over this road to get to where I'm supposed to get to be who I'm supposed to be. So I kind of moved the rocks away myself. But as I moved the rocks away, in between me and this road of perfection was worms. And I come to tell you before I close, I have worms. What do you mean you have worms? There are things that I work on every day, every night, that I battle. And if you're honest with yourself, you do too. But my worms allow me to look at people that have rocks and boulders and stakes or whatever in their life and say, I can't judge you for what you have if I have worms myself. So when you look at people and you look at me, you know their story, and you're allowed to know this person inside out. Look at yourself too. Because I'm the type person that I know if it wasn't but for the grace of God, I wouldn't be here today. That's just me. I'm not trying to push anything on you. I'm just telling you my story. I know where I stand, and I know why I'm here. And I know the things that I've been through. And so the love I have for Jimmy is a love that was given to me by Christ. Because if he loved me through my mess, I know without a shadow of a doubt, he loved him through his. I love you. God bless you.
To read through this. Hi, my name is Kailah. I'm James Guffey's daughter. Today is a hard day for all of us. I'm thankful that you are all here today to remember my dad. The last one was 2 months. I've reflected upon our relationship over the last few years. Things were not always sunshine and rainbows. I'd pray every single night that you would get better. And frankly, it was so hard for me to see everything he was going through. I always thought that since my parents were so young, I would have so many more years with them, and to now know that was not the case has been so hard. Since my dad has passed, I've constantly thought to myself, what could I have done better, or could I have stopped this from happening? I try to distract myself by staying busy, but it just hides the pain. At times I'll find myself staying up late, trying to research my dad. I've learned so much, but then I realize that a few minutes turn into a few hours, and it's now 4 in the morning, and I would have to wake up in 2 hours to go teach. At least a few times a week, my dad would come visit me in my dreams, and he would talk to me. It was the craziest thing, but sometimes it's comforting. Even though I feel like the last few years I couldn't see much of the dad I knew because of his battle with addiction, he would come around every so often. Today I'm remembering the dad I knew and loved. While many people knew him as a professional wrestler, Jimmy Rave, I knew him as my dad. My dad came into my life when I was very little, so young that I don't even remember. He was not my dad by blood, but he never made me feel like I wasn't. He took the role as a father figure for me at such a young age. He always made sure I felt loved and special. Later, he legally adopted me and became my legal father, but nothing changed. It was all the same. My dad was someone I could look up to, learn from, respect, talk to, and someone I could always joke around with. Growing up, my dad and I were 2 peas in a pod. I'll never forget the summers with him because they were so much fun. We would go to Dave & Buster's and play so many arcade games. It amazed me how well my dad was at the claw machine, and it amazes me even more that my little brother is just as good. My dad and I also loved pizza and Chipotle. We would go there at least a few times a week during the summer. My dad was so goofy and loved to play pranks and jokes. I would try so hard to play pranks and jokes back at my dad, but I wasn't really successful. One time when my dad and I went to the store, I wanted some silly folder. He told me if I ate sardines, he would buy it for me. I asked how sardines tasted, and he told me that they weren't bad at all. When I saw his face when I took a bite out of it, I knew this was going to be absolutely disgusting. Of course, I started freaking out, and he was laughing and told me it builds character. One year, I had to have a doorbell for my room because I just wanted it. When I finally got the doorbell, I was so excited and set it up immediately. The next morning, I was instantly ready to get rid of it after waking up to hear my dad ring the doorbell so many times. We loved playing Rock Band and Guitar Hero at my house. Of course, my dad always played the guitar. I remember coming home from elementary school and jumping on the trampoline outside with my dad. One day while we were outside, my dad randomly said I was going to learn how to catch a baseball and a football. With my only sport being competition cheerleading, I knew I was going to be outside for a very long time. To my surprise, he taught me rather quickly. The first day of school every year in my house felt like a holiday. My dad would always wake up singing the first day of school song to me, which consisted of the words of first day of school. At the time, I thought it was so annoying. As I've gotten older, I laugh and smile when I think about it. Now I even sing it to my students on the first day of school. Now I'm a teacher. My dad and my mom always kept it very real with me growing up. My dad struggled with addiction for many years. I remember being in 6th grade and having to visit my dad in rehab for the first time. Even then, I didn't understand the severity of addiction. As I get older, I began to understand how serious it was. My dad would always share his childhood and upbringing with me, and I always was so shocked at everything he went through. He would always tell me that people would always tell him, I don't know how you do it, and he would always respond with, because I had to. Now I find people saying the same thing to me, and I respond the exact same way. My dad was a very big reliever in mental health and impacted so many people struggling with mental health. He loved his job when he worked with the Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network. I remember he would sit and talk for hours about new ideas and plans he had to help the community. He always wanted to help people. I grew up knowing he was very big in the wrestling world, but I don't think I fully understand how big he was until he passed away, because I saw companies like TMZ and People Magazine post about him. My dad impacted so many people in all parts of the world. He would always talk to me about wrestling and how he was so excited whenever we would go to one of his matches. When I was younger, I never understood why he liked being the bad guy or why he liked even if it isn't the popular thing to do. He was always big on keeping your word and being respectful towards others. The most important thing my dad taught me was that your past does not determine your future. If something doesn't work out, get up and try it again. You must set goals and put in effort in everything you do. He always told me to make sure the last conversation you have with someone is important because you never know if it will be your last. I'll forever cherish my last conversation with him. He told me how much he loved me and how he was so proud of me for following my dreams and becoming a teacher and a cheer coach. I'm glad I was able to tell him how much I loved him, and I hope he knew I did. Going forward from today, I'm going to keep his name alive and keep on making him proud. I'll forever wish I could get one more conversation, one more hug, one more first day of school song, and one more conversation that started with "Hey Jude." There's not a day that doesn't go by that he doesn't cross my mind. I don't know how long it will take me to grieve this tremendous loss. My dad was so important to me, and I feel so confused and lost now that he is gone. I know that he is finally at peace and looking down on all of us now. I'll forever cherish the memories and his teachings. The rest of it said, I promise to make you proud. I love you. Love you.
Well, I guess first, some personal business. Let me start by saying it is a unfortunate reality that Caprice had to lead us off because it's nearly impossible to follow Caprice Coleman, one of the greatest natural talkers in professional wrestling. So we all now have to simply try to keep up. It's like putting Ric Flair into the opening match. It's like putting Frank Sinatra before the lead-off act. It's just not right. So, darn you, Caprice. The second thing I have to get out of the way, personal business, is it would have been extremely professional of me to come here in front of all of you great people, many of you friends, people I consider to be family, and actually prepared something, but I didn't. So I'm going to wing it. And let's hope that it doesn't just suck. But we'll figure that out. And remember, worst case scenario, Caprice was really good. So we've got that going for us no matter what happens. I met Jimmy in the early 2000s, back when I was younger and still considered to be the old man. Now as I look out at many of those I have referred to as my kids, they're now the age I was there, and yes, you are now all officially old. And I'm not. Jimmy, when he came in, I learned about Jimmy because David Young, who probably intended to be here today, but he's running late, And he had sent me one of the VHS tapes you may have heard about. And I stuck that in the machine and managed to get through a tag match and liked what I had seen and invited Jimmy to come to this company we had established by putting together one thing with another thing and creating something totally different that we referred to as NWA Wildside out of a little building in Cornelia, Georgia. And almost immediately, Jimmy was over. And that means Jimmy was immediately attracted to the crowd. The crowd immediately responded the second he came through a curtain, and that cannot be taught. It either is or it is not. There is a star factor that covers up the weaknesses of performers and allows them to grow. But Jimmy was darn good from the get. In fact, as he came in, almost immediately he wanted to be the locker room mentor as the new kid on the block, which, when you're talking to a lot of Southern indie guys who will never get out of the building they're in, didn't go over very well at first. The last thing some grizzled 35-year-old guy with a gun and a t-shirt wants to hear is advice from a young skinny kid much better looking than they are. But Jimmy persisted, and it is probably his greatest asset. You could look at his talent, you could look at his accomplishments, those are all great. But no matter how much emotional and physical damage Jimmy did to himself, what he wanted to do was mentor others. He wanted to do that from the beginning. And he did it well. And he did it to nearly the end of his life, which was remarkable. And as I look out, I see people who, when he and I were working at a company called Rampage Wrestling, one of his many ideas was he wanted to expand an idea he had of people who were Jimmy Rave approved. And he chose those people he thought had considerable talent. People like Sal Rinauro, people like Chip Day, Corey Hall, Mike Posey, who could not be here. And he also would adopt others that may not have had the opportunity to excel at the level they should have, someone like Kailah Matthews. Jimmy pushed him to become the heavyweight champion, and Kyle's a relatively small guy. In fact, so small that when Jimmy and I left, well, actually I hung around for a couple of dismal shows, but after Jimmy and I left, a rule was created that someone Kyle's size could no longer be a heavyweight champion. Those kind of rules would have made Jimmy just shake his head. Part of him wanting to mentor was his work within the Georgia government to help strangers. People he only met when they came to the home he helped run. And he tried to take them to a somewhat better place. And in most cases he did. But one of the great realities that he learned and that he experienced is there is no easy path out of addiction. And there's no easy way for even those closest to him to lead him out of that. You fool yourself. You think you can try. You think you can do it. You can put a Band-Aid on a problem. By God, I did that. You know, I like to pretend I have a degree in psychology and that I might be able to help somebody with it. But the reality is, for every minor success I had with James, I had, in essence, failure at the end. I couldn't wave a magic wand and fix what caused him to hurt himself and inevitably what caused him to leave us. And I'll regret that for the rest of my life, but I would regret even more if Todd Wiley had not called me and had said, "You need to call Jimmy, he's in the hospital." And I hadn't talked to Jimmy in a while because I was frustrated. I had internalized his problem and made it my problem. Bad ego, stupid to do. But we all do it. When we can't fix something, we've got to blame somebody, so it's easier to not blame yourself. It's easier to blame the other person. And so I did. But I did make that phone call, and I will be forever thankful that I did, because if I were trying to stand here today and to talk about James, I had not done that, I'd be a hypocrite. And it would be inappropriate for me to be standing here and even trying to talk to any of you about him. We talk about his greatness in wrestling, and out in the audience are, let's refer to them as the Wilson brothers. We have Jeff and Dan, who are doing a podcast that runs hours on end, 5 hours, the last one. You have to have a lot of patience. But one of the things that they've articulated over and over, because they're going into it right now, and what they're talking about was, and to borrow a word from Jeff G., the greatness of Jimmy Rave. And he was that. I'll miss him. He was one of my kids. And they say that the parent should outlive the child. And I'll always regret that that was the case, unfortunately, with James.
Hey, it's Colt, Cabana, and I've been asked to talk a little bit about Jimmy Rave, James Guffey, a kid I got to know very well from a very young age, both early in our wrestling careers. I remember the exact moment in my mind. I believe it was a Sweet Science 16, IWA Mid-South, where he was invited to participate in a tournament that me and a lot of people were constantly wrestling for, IWA Mid-South, and he was kind of like a newcomer coming into our territory, much like he was, his home promotion was NWA Wildside, mine was IWA Mid-South, and I just remember he came in and clicked instantly, and I think that says a lot for who he is as a person and his love for wrestling, and our love for wrestling, all of us that became friends with Jimmy. He had such a fun attitude. He was one of us, even though we were all from kind of different places on the map. And that was kind of where he got into this web of wrestling with all of us, where we were all intermingled a little bit, which moved on to Ring of Honor. And one of my favorite matches ever was in New York City against Jimmy Rave. We opened the show. I believe it was called Manhattan Mayhem, and it was me versus Jimmy, who was brought to the ring by Nana and Jade Chung, and I just hit on all cylinders. It was just, he was such a great bad guy, and I always said that the toilet paper thing with Jimmy was just it was part of an experience. You came to Ring of Honor and you had these different experiences, and you were part of something. That was it was such a great part of the show. Jimmy was such a great part of the show. And I'll miss Jimmy. I'll miss being on shows with him. I'll miss his infection. And, And I'd like to say, I'm feeling and thinking for everybody in his family and his friend circles.
Before I start, I just want to say to Felicia and Kailah and James and the rest of the family that I haven't gotten to meet yet, that I'm sorry for this tragic loss. Also for those that I haven't gotten to meet yet today, my name is Chip Day, and I met James Guffey as Jimmy in the year 2001 at the White City Gym, just a little ways up I-75. He came walking up and was the absolute epitome of cool to me. Blue jeans, t-shirt, clean white Pumas. He always wore Pumas. And long hair under a backwards baseball cap. He was everything I wanted to be. I soon found myself just following him around and wanting to hang out and talk to him as much as possible. And he was my manager in my first match when I was 13 years old. And the next week he even brought me a shirt to go along with the shirt he wrestled in at the time. It was that moment where I figured he didn't exactly hate me. Sorry. Over the years, Jimmy would be many things to me. A friend, a mentor, a rival and a teammate in the ring, a teacher, a guide. But above all those, Jimmy was my big brother. Not in a biological sense, but in the sense from the jump, he was always looking out for me in good times and any bad spots we may have had along the way. I feel as though this was our dynamic for the longest time. A big brother doing his best to help guide the younger, and the younger working tirelessly in the pursuit of making his big brother proud. And in the last few years, I'd like to think I did just that. Jimmy has left an eternal fingerprint on my generation and the generation under me in the wrestling world. He was always willing to listen, to help, and to lift anyone up that he felt needed lifting up. I feel as though we need to carry that on for him. If someone needs help, help them. Reach down and help pull them up. Help them realize their potential. Be the good big brother that Jimmy was. He wanted to see people succeed. He wanted to see the scene grow. He loved wrestling. That's a given. But I don't think we'll ever truly understand how much he loved each and every one of us. I accepted an award on Jimmy's behalf a few weeks back. The Georgia Wrestling History Legends Award. And it's right down there on that table. Legend. Jimmy was every bit that word. I said some words in accepting that award about moving on in a world without James Guffey or Jimmy Rave. I'd like to share a few. I think that we as wrestling people, and just people in general, need to take the light that he showed everybody in this business of, if you're down, I'm going to reach down and help pull you up. If you need help, I'm going to help you. I will go out of my way just to help someone who's under me just because they want it that badly. That's the kind of guy Jimmy was. And I think that we all need to have that same light and same energy just to honor him. Especially if you consider yourself his trainees, his proteges, or his friends. I feel privileged for having such a force in my life. I feel proud knowing that the man I called my big brother meant so much to so many people. Honored to know that he always saw me as Jimmy Rave approved. Thank you guys, and rest in peace, Jimmy.
This is real wild. I can speak for a lot of us and say that none of us really expected to be standing up here and talking about James like this. But what I can say was a legend. He was that dude, and he was like a son to me too. I was the guy that broke Jimmy into the business. A mutual friend named John Johnson had hit me up and said, I got this guy that wants to be a pro wrestler, but there's a catch. I was like, there always is a catch. And he was like, he's like 14 years old. And I was like, yeah, that's a big problem. And so me thinking that I can get out of this by not like hurting somebody's feelings and like stomping on their dreams, I was like, yo, if you come to the spot where I'm training and you bring a parent and they say it's cool, then we can do it. Lo and behold, we were training. Jimmy shows up and he has his mom with him. And everybody knows that in wrestling training, we're not the most polite. We do have mouths, and I was probably cussing and putting people through the paces, and here he comes. He was skinny. He had long hair, and like I said, he brought his mother. So I'm thinking, damn, this really backfired on me. I gotta talk to this kid's mom, and hopefully she says that, nah, he can't do it. But as I'm getting out of the ring and approaching them, I could see in her face that she was with it 100%. So then I meet her, we talk for a second, and I'd already talked to him online for a couple days, trying to, just see if he really wanted to do it, because how I was brought into the business, the guy that trained me, he no-showed me like 7 times. And then that day we had payphones, so I had to stop at a payphone and call him and pretty much check him. And then he was like, I just really wanted to see if you wanted to do this. So I didn't want to be like that, so I tried to fill him out, and I tried to let him know, how things worked in the business from what I experienced so far. So when I approached him, the first thing I said was, he really wants to do this. She was like, yeah, I'm here to tell you to your face that I want you to train my child. And that was Jimmy Rave's origin story in the business of professional wrestling. And from that day, he was with me and he was with Corey Chavis every day. He would go to school, he would come through, we would hang out, we would go train, and we would just be friends that eventually grew into family. And when I got the call, I had gotten off work early, and I was in a Wendy's drive-thru, and Chip Day called me and asked me if I was sitting down. And Chip Day never calls anybody, so just the fact that my phone rang and it said Chip Day, I knew something was up. And he told me as I was getting my food from the lady, and I was trying to process it and fight the tears all at the same time. And as it hit me, I just drove off and I left my bank card at the Wendy's. So when I went back up there like 2 hours later, eyes all puffy from crying, the lady was like, it's not that bad, baby. I got your card. Nobody's taking it. I was like, nah, it's not that. I just got some real bad news that my kid passed away while I was in the drive-thru. And the funny thing about it is, when it was all said and done, I remembered that I talked to him 2 days before, and we talked for about 3 hours about nothing but wrestling and how I was supposed to be a pro wrestler and a mentor way past the time that I'm supposed to be. And I kept telling him, nah, Jimmy, nah, I'm old, I'm not that dude anymore, my knees hurt, my back hurts, and he was like, well, I lost my arm, I lost my leg. So what's your excuse? And those words have haunted me ever since. And I think that he really wanted me to stay in and take somebody from youth, or and shine knowledge on him like I did on him and like he's done on countless others. With that said, Jimmy, I'll miss you forever and I'll see you when I see you.
Yes, Miss Tubbs. No problem.
Neighbor.
Hello, I'm the small one that Bill was talking about earlier. My name is Kailah. I met Jimmy in around 2008, and he instantly took a liking to me, and kind of took me under his wing, and we traveled thousands of miles. And when there was a Jimmy Rave approved, I was never Jimmy Rave approved. I was just the guys always fighting Jimmy Rave approved. So I think every weekend for 5 years, I probably wrestled Jimmy Rave or some combination of Jimmy Rave approved. And it was like the best times of my life. Without Jimmy Rave, I think there's a whole section of us over here that would not be how far we are in wrestling now. And I don't think we can ever thank him enough. Just two quick stories about how great of a guy Jimmy was. We were wrestling in Saudi Daisy, Tennessee for Dan over there. And I took a bump on the apron and smashed my skull open. And Jimmy was there every second of the way to take me to the hospital, was there when I got my staples put in, just to make sure that everything was okay. He drove me home. He made sure that my family knew I was okay. And I mean, what more could you ask for out of a friend than to be there when you're in your time of need? And also once we had a show in Alabama, and Jimmy wanted to go speak at a rehab facility there, so I went with him. And seeing his interaction with the guys that were there, and his vulnerability in telling his story, and his willingness to help everyone, it was really something that I took away and really appreciated, and really was just happy that I could see Jimmy in that light outside of wrestling. So Jimmy, thank you for everything. We love you, we miss you, and can't wait to see you again. Thank you.
So, it took me a while to process this. It took me some time to kind of understand what had happened. I never had to really deal with death, other than my grandparents, and I haven't really had to really deal with this very much. When Todd, sent me the text, my first reaction was, Todd, are you okay? And I text Sal. I was like, Sal, are you okay? And I didn't process it. I felt the hurt for his family, and the people that were closer to him. And it didn't hit me till we did a tribute show to Jimmy. I lost it at some point. Bill mentioned my name, and I don't remember anything past that, because all those emotions just hit me. Jimmy was a lot of things to a lot of different people. I lived with Sal for 2-3 years, I don't know. And Jimmy was Sal's big brother. So, all the stories that I heard about Jimmy, all the admiration that Sal had from him, they all came, he was larger than life to me, because that's the way he was presented to me. The first time I met Jimmy, kind of similar to what Chip said, he was just in awe. He had this aura of just being a star, being just so much more than the rest of us. And it's hard to explain. Some people just have this thing, and Jimmy had it. And over the years, I got to work with Jimmy several times. I was, in a similar boat with Kailah, where, for Rampage, every week it was, I was working with somebody to be Jimmy Rave approved. And that helped a lot, because Jimmy was always very willing to give criticism and advice and make us all better. Those are the guys that, I'm still friends with today, that because of Jimmy, we're friends. Because, Jimmy made us better. Jimmy made us understand our craft better and understand how much better we could be, not just in the ring, but as people as well. I had the privilege of working with Jimmy, I guess at the end of his run here in Georgia. Myself and Bobby Moore, we were working for Todd at Southern Fried, and he was bringing Jimmy in to do some shots, and Todd came up with the idea of putting us with Jimmy, and Jimmy was all for it. Jimmy was, And it wasn't one of those situations where it's like, oh, this guy told me to do this, so I'm going to do it. Jimmy went all in on it. He helped us. He taught us. He coached us. You know, I was telling Todd the other day, you know, there was a match that I watched with Jimmy and Seth DeLay from Tennessee. And watching Jimmy work in that ring, it was odd because a lot of those mannerisms that I do, he did in that match. And I realized, talking to Todd, that I picked those things up watching Jimmy, being on the apron and watching him do those things and you know, seeing his reactions and doing all that. And when Jimmy's time was up here in Georgia and he moved on, he left me and Bobby with a little bit of his legacy. He left us with the approved. And I don't think people understand how much that meant to me. Because every time that we wear that brand or that we represent that logo, it's to make Jimmy proud, and it's for Jimmy, and we don't just let anybody have that. We don't just give it away. We carry on the legacy of helping each other. It's a brotherhood. You know, we take care of each other. We make each other better. The same way that Jimmy did that for us, and the way that Jimmy did it for the original Jimmy Rave Approved. And when we did that tribute show, it hit me because I felt this enormous pressure to carry on that legacy because he gave that to us, and it's our job to make sure that people remember where it came from, especially here. And just to kind of give a more in-depth representation of Jimmy. Jimmy was doing some work in Philadelphia. He was, helping train and had kids he was working with. Every time that his kids were ready to start wrestling and get in the ring, Jimmy would refer them to me for wrestling gear, and it was always the same thing. Hey, I'm going to send them to you. Please take care of them. I trust you. And I can't tell you how many people Jimmy touched outside of Georgia. And I didn't have a lot of conversations with Jimmy past year. Hey, how are you? This or that. After he left. But he always sent his guys to me. He always looked out for me. He always looked out for them. And I think that's the legacy that I want to create for Jimmy, is just to look out and to help others. And, I think, Chip said it best, it's, you reach down and you pull up, people around you. And to me, that's what Jimmy was, and that's what Jimmy's going to be. And, I'm sorry I didn't get to tell him thank you. So I hope he hears me. I hope he knows that I'm grateful for everything.
Hello, my name is Todd. I'm the agent for this performance tonight. I want to thank Bill for calling us old now, and I want to thank Demetis for proving it by referring to his a debit card as a bank card. You can hear a lot of the same stuff over and over as you've already heard about what Jimmy meant to wrestling. And I say Jimmy, James is I'm one of the few people in wrestling, along with Demetis, along with Bill, who call him James. I had a different relationship than a lot of the guys did because I was kind of like Murder said, or Demetis, he was Jimmy's dad, but I was like the big brother. And we had we were at each other's weddings. Felicia, do you remember a New Year's Eve night? And it's a scavenger hunt? That's a story for another time. So it was very long. It was a long night. Ended up at my parents' house at one point, and then a deli, or part of a deli. So we experienced a lot of stuff outside of the wrestling ring. And Adrian mentioned earlier about us doing a show. It was a couple of days after Jimmy's death, and we turned it into a tribute for him, which has now become one of my proudest moments, is for us to be able to do that. And Jimmy, Kailah, I want y'all been through so much. But the fact is, you see this huge assortment of people. I mean, when we got here, more people asked to speak because of the impact he's had on people's lives. And everybody's going to refer to the wrestling and stuff, because that's how we know each other. And it's ingrained in us, and to a detriment as far as getting out of this wrestling bubble. But as you said, you saw it all over the place when it happened, the news hits, and maybe we didn't realize the impact it would cause and how it would affect us. Because it's just strange. Like, for instance, my whole goal of the show with you guys was there with you guys. I wanted to make sure it did right for you. So, it's hard to, I wasn't worried about processing things. And even here, I get here, Felicia goes, here, can you arrange everybody up? Which is good. I'm busy making sure everybody hits the time cues and stuff. But it's just great to see people have come far and wide to come here to pay honor and tribute to somebody. Like, every wrestler here, I can legitimately say, and if you're not sure, if you've wrestled Jimmy, I have a memory of it. I really do. From Caprice to Murder to Mr. Delicious, Nick, Chip, Kyle, Jeremy, Jeff coming to ringside with Jimmy on the picture we saw earlier, because I was there, and then Jeff will tell you the story in the car right back where he hated everybody. But Jeff will probably do that on the way home anyway today and hate everybody, so that's understandable. But it's amazing. I have a memory with him with everybody. And I remember him being so excited when he adopted you. I remember having that conversation on the phone. Jimmy, I remember where I was in Dahlonega doing medical transport on the phone with him when you were born. I remember the road. I remember pulling over and talking to him. So, and it's funny how these memories stick with you. I have all these wrestling memories, but it's the personal memories that mean a lot. Our famous apartment in Sandy Springs, where, he's already, Demetis is already smiling. Sal made me Club AB, and some of the other guys. I mean, just personal time that we had, and in the car, because that's how guys bond in the car, for people not familiar with wrestling and stuff. So I'm not going to go on and say the same thing. We know what Jimmy's accomplishments are. You've seen him, but I want you guys to appreciate, because y'all, excuse my language, Caprice, went through hell. And, to at least see that he is, despite how things ended and how things were for the last couple of years and some stuff he may have done, everybody's still here and loving him and paying him tribute, and will continue to do so. So, for you guys, I'm sorry, you know this, and I don't know what to say that hasn't been said yet, so we'll just move on. Thank you.
is Jennifer, and I'm known in the wrestling world as Jay Chung. I had the absolute pleasure of working with Jimmy in Ring of Honor as part of the embassy. I just want his kids to know how much Jimmy respected women in general. And women in the wrestling business in 2005 were not looked like they are looked now as equals in today's wrestling. And that's what stuck out about Jimmy. And the role that I played, I was his footstool, and I was treated poorly between him and Prince Nana. But if it wasn't for Nana and Jimmy, there would be no embassy. There would not be a Jay Chung in Ring of Honor, because if I had even an ounce of feeling uncomfortable, this wouldn't have happened. The storyline wouldn't have happened. I'm a pretty strong person, so I would definitely have said, see you later, goodbye, I'm not doing this. But because it was Jimmy who was so respectful to me, and I carried that in my heart till this day forward, it meant so much to me. And he is one of the first people that, I think of when I think of Ring of Honor. After his match, Jimmy would ask me if I was okay. I'm not the one getting hit with chairs. I'm not the one who just wrestled, a 20-minute match. All I did was, for him anyway, all I did was just get down on my fours, and he just stepped on me to get into the ring. And yet he still asked me if I was okay during his match, after his match. He was just so respectful. And you know why? He made me feel important. And I'll never, ever forget that. Rest in peace, Jimmy.
It's very loud and squeaky when you're walking up here, and it's very quiet out there, just so you know. You might just have to hold it. Okay. Thank you all for coming today to honor the life of James Michael Guffey and Jimmy Rave. My name is Tony Guffey, and I am James's stepmom. In our family, we use the term bonus mom. And I was blessed that, for the most part, James just called me mom. James will be remembered as the son of James William Guffey and Connie Lucille Calhoun Guffey Smith. He will be remembered as the brother of Shelby. He will be remembered as the father of Kailah and James. And he will also be remembered as husband, grandson, nephew, cousin, advocate, wrestler, co-worker, mentor, inventor, creative, and friend. James was loved and admired by many, And I think all of us here today can agree that he has gone away too soon. So in these moments of loss, we can be faced with conflicting feelings. We can be faced with joy and sadness and love and anger and clarity and confusion and a full heart and an empty one. So what I would encourage each of you to do is lean into that. Lean into the yes and acknowledge that two things can be true at once and that we can hold them both in the same moment. We can be grateful for the time that we had with James, and we can also be sad for the times that we didn't have with him. We can honor the many ways that he was an amazing person, which you were doing so well today. And we can also be honest about the ways that he wasn't. We can be full of anger or frustration with him, with ourselves, with each other, and still be united in the fact that we loved him and we hold him dear, and there's so much of him to honor. And there's so much of his memory that we can share collectively. And again, such great memories that you are sharing today of the ways that he touched your life. So what do we do now? How do we best remember James and Jimmy Rave? Continue to tell his story, all of it, every part of it. And as we speak of him, we can laugh and we can cry, we can forgive, and we can love. And when moments remind us of him, say it out loud. Tell somebody else about James and about Jimmy Rave and how he touched your life. And in all the ways that he made our lives better, try to do that for somebody else. You've heard so many stories today about how he was an advocate and a mentor and just a friend and respectful. Do that for someone else. And as we go from today, take his memory with you, carry it always, and allow it to make you better versions of yourself. For all of us and for him. Thank you.
James Michael Guffey was born a baby. That's one of 800 million jokes that Jimmy and I used to share. With no Jimmy Rave, there's no Sal Rinauro, and I don't mean that professionally because that goes without saying. Without James Michael Guffey, there's no Salvatore Vitale Rinauro, the man. There's so many things I've done in my life that I've tried to model after my best friend. There were so many road trips that we couldn't stay the night. We had to get home. And I could not understand why this man would just not let me sleep. And it's because he wanted to get home to you, Kailah, and Felicia. And he said he could sleep at home and wake up to you guys instead of waking up in a hotel room with me. That really makes all the sense in the world. Chip touched on Jimmy being the epitome of cool. And there is absolutely absolutely no way I could go today without sharing this story. Little Jimmy, I promised you this earlier, so get your notepad out. One night, Jimmy and I ended up at a club together. I don't even know why we weren't even partiers, but the two of us were out at a bar, and the local radio station was giving away promotional cups and beads and who knows what else. And we had a stack of these cups on our table. Empty, Power 106 cups or whatever. And a couple of ladies had come over to talk to us. Well, a couple of ladies had come over to talk to Jimmy, and I was there. And as they were talking, Jimmy grabbed one of these empty cups and threw it back. And I could not grasp why Jimmy was drinking air. And he puts the cup down and he goes back to the conversation, but he kind of gave me the eyes, and I looked at it. Jimmy had magically thrown up into this cup and not missed a beat. Just seamlessly. Nobody knew it. And it just, that was Jimmy Rave cool, man. That was Jimmy Rave cool. I could go on for hours about the different adventures we had. Just, Jimmy was everything to me for a long, long time. And even when Jimmy and I used to joke about moving to Philadelphia, because that was the wrestling capital of the Indies. That was just an inside thing with us. We're going to move to Philly. We're going to take over the indie world. And as much as it hurt me when he did move to Philly, just because the circumstances he was under, part of me smiled because Jimmy was still at it, man. And Jimmy will always, in my heart, be at it. Even after he's lost his legs and his arm, even before it was public, he had let me know. And he'd come to me with ideas about how he could get to the ring. I told him I'd throw him on my back like Yoda. We can go to Mexico because they only use the right side anyway, so we'll be good to go, man. Jimmy's birthday was the same birthdays as my son's. And my son's initials just happened to be JR. And he gave me the business about that. Just relentlessly. Just every time I bring up Jacob, I go, oh, you mean fake Jimmy. It's always fake Jimmy. And I'm very lucky. Now every time I look at my kid, I can think he's fake Jimmy. Because in reality, we're all just fake Jimmys. Because there was only one. There will always only be one. One of Jimmy's favorite stories that I used to share about our adventures together. We were flying out of Philadelphia. It was like a 3-day trip. It was a long trip. For those of you that don't know, wrestling promoters are notoriously cheap with their plane tickets. So our flights usually left about 30 minutes past, way too early. So we've been on this tour for 3 days, and we just went straight to the airport, no sleep, beat ourselves up, drove to the next town, beat ourselves up, drove to the next town, beat ourselves up, went to the airport. At the time, I had the Ring of Honor tag team title with me. And there's very few people in the airport. And we're going through security. And like always, Jimmy's leading the pack, and I'm behind him. So Jimmy goes through security, no problem. I go through next. As I'm going through, my bag goes through the scanner. And the security guard goes, who's the champion? It's me. security guard goes, "You don't look big enough." And again, 3 days, no sleep, and I'm getting beat up. I look back at the security guard and go, "You're not big enough to be a security guard." And me and this officer lock eyes for what's, I'm pretty sure part of my still gazing into this man's eyes. And the only thing you could hear is his footsteps going the other way. Because he was having none of that search. Finally, they let me go. I caught up with Jimmy and said, "Hey, what happened, man?" He said, "I don't know. You tell me. You're the idiot that can't keep your mouth shut." You're right, Jimmy. And that was our relationship. Jimmy had just gotten a new car. His old car had a squeaky steering wheel. We called it Wheelie. It was part of the team. And Jimmy had just gotten a new car. We were going down to Florida, and I made him promise I'm not going to make this car dirty. We're going to take care of your new car. We had stopped at a gas station, and I needed a protein shake because I'm insane. And for those of you, this is 06, protein shakes came in boxes. There weren't nice, fancy bottles. They were these. Jimmy's giving me the business. "Don't you get that banana shake in my car. Don't you get that banana shake in my car." I said, "Jimmy, I've been drinking my whole life. I can manage to consume this drink without spilling it everywhere." So I take the top off and I put the bottle the box to my mouth. And as soon as I do, Jimmy grabs it and starts squeezing all the liquid into my mouth. And I'm fighting to figure out how I can swallow and keep this from going everywhere. And I'm slowly filling up until finally it explodes everywhere. And Jimmy looks at me, dead in the eye. "I told you not to get my car dirty." And that was Jimmy. It was always an adventure, and it was always insanity, and it was. There's no other place in the world I would have ever wanted to be. About a week before he passed, my phone rang and I looked down and I saw it was Jimmy, and I was in the middle of about 800 things. And I was going to blow it off, but something said answer the phone, so I did. And we had about an hour and a half long conversation about everything. About life, obviously about wrestling, but just, it was the first coherent conversation I'd had with Jimmy in about 3 years. And it was so good that when I got off the phone, I knew Jimmy was going to be okay no matter what. And there's a sense of ease knowing Jimmy doesn't have to wake up any more scared. Jimmy doesn't have to wake up any more sad because he can't do what he loved to do. And Kailah, Jimmy, he loved you. And he was so afraid of disappointing you guys. He only wanted you guys to see the best version of him. So Jimmy, it's Goose. The pit fighter was a horrible idea. No, I won't milk you. I hate reggaeton. And I still haven't started The Wire. On our car trips, there was a lot of hip-hop music played because when you look at me and Jimmy, the first thing you think is hip-hop music. But every once in a while, he'd slide in one of his burned CDs, and Wonderwall by Oasis was always always on his burned CDs. And he would almost embarrassingly tell me, yeah, that this is one of my favorite songs. Cool, man. As I was going through all our memories, I kind of played that song, and there's a part of it that I'd like to say before I go. And all the roads we have to walk are winding, and all the lights that lead us there are blinding. There are many things that I would like to say to you, but I don't know how. Because maybe you're going to be the one that saves me. And after all, you're my wonder wall. I love you, Jimmy.
Got hard. My name is Felicia Guffey. I'm Jake's ex-wife and the mother to our 2 children. Our son, James, would like to say something really quick. I first want to say thank you for all the people that came and spoke. And thank you for explaining to me what my dad was like and how he loved me and my sister. And just thank you. Writing it down because I'm not a professional wrestler and I can't cut promos just off of the, cuff like you guys. And I sat down so many times to do this and had just so many struggles. The last few years I only saw glimpses of the man that I had known for so long. As time went on, his struggles with drugs took him over as a person. But today, I choose to remember the man before the drugs took him. Jimmy Rave and James Guffey, they were such different people. Jimmy Rave, his wrestling persona was cocky. He was super conceited. He was sneaky and conniving. He would choke you out with a shoestring and hide it under his arms or in his mouth, which is just gross and totally grossed me out so many times and really still does. He was goofy and confident, and he was so super talented with all aspects of wrestling. He was the heel the fans loved to hate, and he was the best at that. James Guffey was humble and kind. He was respectful and loving. And he did what he could to try to not upset those in his life that he cared about. He didn't want to disappoint anyone. walk in the room without him grabbing her arm and tying her up in a wrestling move. She learned how to take a clothesline on the trampoline and how to leapfrog probably before she could even ride a bike. Our son, even though I know you can't remember, thought you were a superhero because you could throw a punch and Dad would just not even miss a beat and hit the ground like you were just a superhero. He was the fun parent. I can remember when he toured England, and I was lucky enough to get to go with him on that trip. What I thought was going to be glamorous, a glamorous trip across England, was exhausting and stinky, but it was hilarious. And it is the trip where the two-finger salute was born, and I'll forever hold those memories with me. I traveled on many occasions with him at the earlier part of our relationship and continually found that it was not glamorous and it was stinky and the hotels were not anywhere I wanted to stay and I'd wake up with cricks in my neck. So then I started staying home and Sal had to start driving home in the middle of the night. When we were in England, the arenas were flooded with fans and they were ready to throw toilet paper at him. We used to joke about how shitty he was for people to throw toilet paper at him, and he just thought that was the funniest thing. He had the absolute best sense of humor, and he had some of the best friends who loved him hard. And so many of them are here today, and thank you guys for that. I've always had a love-hate relationship with wrestling. I loved it, or I wanted to love it because he loved it, but I hated it. Because like Caprice said, it was just that thing that just would pull you in, put you up top, and then chew you up and spit you out and stomp on you. And I just always had that love-hate relationship with it. While all of this has been very difficult, I have a little bit more love for it because you guys have been absolutely amazing in the support that you have offered. Especially like Todd and Sal. That tribute show that you guys did was so healing for our family and we really appreciate it. The last few years were a bit of a roller coaster. When he was sober, he would call, and my hopes were always that he would be able to beat his addiction. I'm thankful for the many memories and years of happy and loving memories that we had. I'm thankful for our daughter Kailah and how I get to see his kind, caring, forgiving heart shine through her on a regular basis. Because those of you that know me really well know that I'm not like that. He definitely gave that to her. I'm thankful that I let him talk me into having another baby. James II. Because, well, he looks just like him. And they have so many similarities. He has an extreme love for history, just like his dad. And I can't tell you how many times that James tried to tell me about the War of 1812, and I still have no idea what it's about. Or how he's a master at the claw machine, which our daughter Kailah told you, and how he is too. Weird how they say the difference between nature and nurture, and those are things that just happened. He has the ability to play baseball, just like his dad did. And I even sometimes hear his laugh, and it reminds me of James. I'm thankful for all of the good times, and thankful to have those memories. And I'm thankful that all of you came and shared yours with us as well.